and welcome to a special edition of VLGA Connect, where we're going to get to know a member of the public sector a little bit better, the new CEO of the Environmental Protection Authority, Lee Miezis. Hi, Lee.
Great to join you today.
Good to have you with us. I think I put an AL on the end of environment there that I shouldn't have. The EPA is much easier.
That's
much easier to say. Welcome to the program and to the role. How long have you been in the CEO position thus far?
Yeah, well, I started sort of as interim CEO in February this year. So been with the organisation now just over 6 months.
And where have you come from prior to this, Lee? Because you've been around the public sector for a while, haven't you?
I have. I've been with the Victorian public sector since about 2005. So prior to that was in New South Wales. But most recently it was the CEO of Bushfire Recovery Victoria. So had the great honour and privilege of really standing up that organisation to support communities across eastern Victoria that were really impacted by those horrific fires of the 1920 summer. And then prior to bushfire recovery, was a deputy secretary within the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning. So led the land management, fire and emergency management, and then all of the regional kind of delivery for DELP for a number of years.
How do you feel all of that experience has prepared you for the role that you're in now, heading up the EPA?
Yeah, I think a couple of things I draw on. Certainly a strong sense of place. So all of the roles that I've had have had that strong sense of place and really supporting and encouraging place-based leadership around, particular challenges, whether they're environmental or pollution and waste challenges like in the EPA, or whether it's about recovering from a bushfire. I think that strong sense of place, that strong appreciation of community and local leadership and how government enables and supports that, rather than kind of gets in the way or dictates or tells communities how to do things. I think our job, and I see my job as really supporting communities to achieve their aspirations. Now, of course, as a regulator, that becomes a bit different. But I think that the fundamentals of working with community to solve important problems is what I've sort of brought with me through many roles.
How challenging was that bushfire recovery role, Lee? Because I can just imagine some of the issues you would have had to deal with could have been quite confronting.
Working in recovery is you're exactly right. It's incredibly confronting, but at the same time, it is incredibly rewarding. And I think the challenges for me of really standing up the organisation, but delivering services to impacted communities was challenging. And then, of course, made all the more challenging by COVID. So it was a bit akin to building the plane and flying it at the same time, if you like. But then having to recruit and stand up an organisation almost entirely remotely. So, there was a number of people, even over the 12 months or just over 12 months I was with BRV, that I hadn't never met in person. But I did have the benefit. I live in regional Victoria. So whilst there was sort of, restrictions on the movement of people in Melbourne, I was able to go region to region. So we're still able to kind of connect with our regional teams, connect with local communities, which I think made all the difference through that recovery journey.
Extraordinary times indeed. And of course, we're experiencing more of that at the moment. You've taken on a new role. Where's your focus in the short to medium term in heading up the EPA?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. Obviously, the organisation really for the past 5 years has been very focused on transforming and getting ready for new legislation to come into effect. It's been a big focus. It's been some great work, and of course culminated in the commencement of the new Environment Protection Act on 1st of July, this year. Now, for me, it's really reorientating the organisation in a lot of ways from transforming and getting ready to really delivering under the new act and continuous improvement. This is new. It's quite fundamental shift in EPA and its operations as our focus changes from, if you like, reacting or responding to the impacts of pollution and waste to what is a world-leading preventative-based regulatory regime. So we get in there, we work with industry, we work with our partners, and we look to prevent those incidents from happening up front. So it is a fundamental shift from in the legal framework, the regulatory framework, which requires a fundamental shift in how we work as an organisation. So that's a big focus for me, getting the organisation really set up for success. We've got an ambition to be that world-class regulator, world-leading regulator that really makes use of the powers that we asked for as an organisation and the community said we needed as an organisation to deliver great outcomes. So internally, that's the focus. Externally, of course, similar new duties, new responsibilities for industries, for co-regulators, supporting them, building that knowledge base, and ultimately lifting the performance to achieve those good environmental outcomes.
It does sound like a fundamental shift in approach, and you mentioned that it's world leading. How do we come to be in this place in Victoria where we're trying something so radically different in this space?
Yeah, it's a good question. It often takes a bit of governments to be pretty brave to make the bold shift that has in this law. And I think my observation would be seeing the real benefit that occurred in the occupational health and safety space, where a duties-based framework was put in there almost over a decade, and real improvements in safety outcomes across all industries, and really applying that principle to the environment. We have seen, unfortunately, over a long time, and EPA has been dealing and continues to deal with some of the ramifications of illegal activity, whether that's stockpiling of waste, whether it's illegal dumping of chemicals. We're continually sort of focused on responding to those issues and can really only act when those issues occur. That's how the 1970 Act, was set up. I think learning from the benefits in occupational health and safety, learning from that old adage, prevention is kind of better than cure. Getting up front, working with industry, lifting performance, and it's everyone's role, right? We've all got a role in protecting the environment. We've all got a role in making sure our communities are safe. Our public health standards are high. So I think it's a pretty brave move, but it makes sense, and I reckon I'll be very surprised if other EPAs around the nation and even internationally don't follow suit pretty quickly.
You'd have to give yourself some time to see whether this is proving successful by however you measure it, because you've got some pretty wicked problems in existence that you're obviously not going to solve with a preventative approach because they're already there. So for a period of time, would I be right in guessing you're going to have a two-pronged approach to those issues?
Absolutely. Well, I said, new duties, new responsibilities. It's about educating. It's about lifting that performance standard. But it goes without saying that deliberate or criminal non-compliance, those criminal behaviours that we see, we'll go very hard at those issues. So, it's about. I think it's about being proportionate in the type of in our approach as a regulator. So educating and supporting where it's appropriate, but where we do see that criminal, that really deliberate behaviours, then we've got new powers, bigger fines, bigger sanctions, and we will use them where we need to.
Lee, from a local government perspective, I know you've signed an MOU with the MAV, and local government is an important stakeholder for the EPA, always has been. How do you see the relationship changing, if at all, under this new legislative environment that we now have?
Well, the relationship with EPA and local government is kind of twofold. In one way, local government is a duty holder, and we regulate a number of council activities. Landfills, waste facilities, construction activities, and there are new obligations that the Act places on local government. So, like other industries, we'll work with local government so that it understands those new obligations, those new duties, support them to comply. And we've got some great materials available on our website, local government specific guidance to assist in that endeavour. So I think we'll continue to work with local government. We'll continue to lift that standard as kind of regulator duty holder relationship. Of course, the other relationship we have with local government is as a co-regulator, and working with local government around things like residential noise, septic septic systems. So again, it's really strengthening that relationship, really leveraging the respective skills of the organisation. And again, as we have in terms of the guidance material for council as a duty holder, we've also got a lot of supporting documents and arrangements there to really assist local councils in its role as a co-regulator too.
I recall in my time at Hobsons Bay being involved in an early trial, if you like, of the officers for the Protection of Local Environment program, where you've embedded EPA staff in particular councils to work on some of those, I guess, local wicked problems. Do you see that as the type of relationship that you want to have with local government going forward?
I think the Opals is a fantastic model, and clearly government does too, because we've received ongoing funding for that post the initial pilot. So in that project or that program in specifically, for me now, it's post-pilot, working with local government to really kind of co-design what is the mainstreaming of that program across local government look like. It's a great program. Every council I speak to, I want my own Opal. So, we've got to work out how do we deliver, the best bang for our buck, if you like, from what is a really effective program. But to your specific point, I think it is a great model. And we're thinking about that model across a range of things and other areas that we work in. Simply, really resourcing a strong partnership around local issues, drawing on that local knowledge and strength that local councils have, and bringing in some of the expertise that EPA has. I think it's a good model. We swarm around problems. We really leverage our collective strengths, and we resource it appropriately. And I think the pilot of the Opals, I think it really evidences the benefit of that type of approach.
Great, that's really positive to hear, Lee. In terms of how local government goes about its business where it intersects with the EPA, is there anything that you'd like to see councils doing differently or better?
I think overall, councils have really engaged well with EPA during that transformation and readying process that I talked about earlier. I think it's continuing that. I'd like to continue to have an open, transparent relationship with councils where we are sharing information. Now, I know, as people can be a bit nervous about sharing everything with the regulator, but I think our commitment there is to educate, to support, to be proportionate in what we do. And I think fundamental for us, to achieve those shared outcomes that I'm sure we all do, which is a stronger and healthier environment, healthier communities, then open, honest, regular communications is going to be really important. Now, that's at the individual council to EPA level, but as a collective, I'd like to see how we do that, how we identify where there are perhaps gaps in the system, and that we, again, work together to address those. And again, a lot of that material that we put together to support councils in that co-regulator role was co-developed. We did it together, and it's not us second guessing or imposing our views of the world on council. It's asking the question, building that understanding, and ultimately putting the best solution in place for everyone. So I think I'd like to see that relationship and that approach really continue going forward.
Lee, in terms of cultural change within the organisation that you're now leading, I guess, the legislation brings about a need to do things a bit differently. How is that change program going under a COVID sort of environment, in and out of lockdowns, etc.? That must be very challenging.
Look, it is challenging, and as an organisation, we've got to make quite a big shift. We've got to look at the capabilities we've got and really make sure that we do have those right capabilities in the right place, doing the right things. So a lot of work at the moment looking at our operating model. And of course, structure tends to be part of that. But you're exactly right. Culture, I think, is what organisations live and die by. And we've got to build that culture of the modern, agile regulator, really shifting from, as I said before, a response mode to really broadening out the skills, the tools, and how we use them to be effective in preventing pollution and waste before it occurs. So, focusing on our culture and getting the right cultural settings in the organisation is going to be it's a big focus. Of course, not being able to get people together in a room and do those typical things you do early on in forming a team is always made more challenging. But I will say, I think over the last 18 months, and certainly drawing on some of the approaches we had to take in building a team from scratch in BRV, I'm kind of applying some of that. I think we've learnt to do things pretty well online. I still miss the face-to-face, but you do what you can as best you can to achieve the outcomes you need to achieve.
Well, it sounds like an exciting role, Lee. Wish you all the best with it. And open invitation, as you have things you'd like to share with the sector or discuss perhaps openly with the local government sector, please remember us at VLGA Connect and you'll always be welcome.
Absolutely, and certainly appreciate the opportunity to talk to everyone today. So thank you very much, Chris.
Thanks, Lee. Great to meet you. Lee Miezis, the new CEO of the EPA, with us on this special edition of VLGA Connect.